Hi, and welcome to Crypto for Advisors, a podcast by Synergist. More than a third of Australians are into crypto, yet nearly 90% of advisors will not discuss it with them. I believe this is exposing investors to unnecessary risks, compromising the value of advised relationships, and limiting investment performance. My goal is to educate advisors and investors to bridge this crypto service gap while strengthening advised relationships. So let's get into today's episode. Welcome to Crypto for Advisors, a podcast by Synergist. In today's episode, I have got Mark Papendieck from Dash Technology Group joining me. Mark and I have known each other for quite some time. And we've worked together, I won't say how many years, but quite a number of years ago.
Many years, yeah.
And since then, Mark has done a whole variety of very, very interesting roles, including being a gold miner in Brazil and a variety of things. But really what Mark is excellent at is innovation and technology in the wealth management space. And that's why I thought I'd love to have him on our podcast. So welcome, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. And I think that some of our early days working together actually really relevant now because of that. Obviously, it will age us, and I know you tried to avoid that, and I usually do too. But that whole .com boom at the beginning of this century, a long time ago now. But there are some analogies to kind of the impact that tech had, or the impact that .com boom had on tech back then. Some analogies to the impact that AI is having on tech now. Far, far bigger this time around. But nonetheless, some analogies that I think we'll end up having to talk about actually. So fun times.
Yeah, it is. And you're right, we're both involved in that real push, which was, I think, largely around self-directed investors, opening up self-directed investment channels, share trading, platforms and the like, and then also following up with technology, which really made information, digitalized information and made it more accessible, such as wrap platforms that we were working on at the time as well. And I think that they did lay the foundation of modern finance or modern wealth management. You referenced it to AI, and I think with AI, it seems to me that AI is just happening a lot quicker.
Look far quicker. And just a couple of comments on that .com boom and the impact on tech and on the speed of change. But you're right. I mean, I think Microsoft had some interesting numbers out at the beginning of this year about how much faster it is this time around. So I think they said mobile phones, when they first came out, took 16 years to reach 100 million users. I think the internet at the time from way before the .com boom, but it took 7 years to reach 100 million users. Of course, ChatGPT took 3 months. So that's how much faster the change is occurring. But I think one of the similarities is that wrap platform that you and I were working on at the time, it was actually the first internet-based wrap platform in Australia. I'd love to say it was the first one in the world. I don't recall now, but certainly in Australia. But if you recall at the time, there was still dial-up broadband and that horrible clunky sound, and so you actually had to be a true believer in the fact that the internet, the browser at that point in time was the worst that it was ever going to be. So that is, it was going to get better every day after that. And so that's, I think, why we obviously had that belief at the time, and the people that backed us and that went on to be a super successful business was because people believed that, hey, we can see what it's going to do to the financial services landscape. And today back then was the worst it was ever going to be. AI is the same, but again, with that speed of change so much faster with AI, I think nobody has to wait as long to actually see the impact that it's having. But still, I keep saying to people when they complain about hallucinations with the large language model that, what, and in fact, even over the last couple of months, that's decreased a lot, the level of hallucinations. But again, AI today is the worst that it's ever going to be. So, and the speed of change, Moore's law is kind of out the window now. It's just everything is changing so quickly. So, and it impacts everything. I know we'll get into crypto and the whole wealth management landscape, but how advisors, intermediaries, financial services companies think about tech has just, it's just changed. We'll talk about technology in a minute, but whatever a firm was thinking 2 or 3 years ago about how to build and design, their next tech platform, it's changed. You've got to be thinking differently about it now.
Yeah. And those commonalities are really what I think have brought us together to have this conversation, the commonalities with crypto. It's a similar adoption curve, and it's a similar impact that it's having on well, maybe not the wealth management industry per se at the moment, traditional finance industry, but certainly on wealth creation for consumers, retail investors it is. And if you reference back to the data points that you're using around how quickly it takes to get 100 million users on a platform, for crypto today, there's 600 million people in the world who own crypto today. And
It's
so
insane.
I don't know when we hit 100 million, but it would have probably been maybe 10 years.
I'll look it up as we go and let you know. But I think, but like, so taking that point and your earlier comment about self-directed investors, I think that's another one of these big changes, because as you say, back in the day, there was self-investing even in the share market, as you were saying to me before we came on air. It was frowned upon. Back in the day, it was a fad. It was ridiculous. And today, people investing without an advisor into equities is just it's just the way of the world. And of course that's inevitable. And I think one of the things that AI is doing to that whole self-directed movement is that it's bringing around the inevitable far more quickly. Did you see there was, I think yesterday or the day before in the States, the CEO of JP Morgan spoke about allowing advisors. Did you see the words that he used when he announced it? Speaking to the JP Morgan investors, we will allow you to buy crypto. Oh my goodness! Like. What a dinosaur comment. Investors are buying whatever they want, my friend. You don't get to allow them to buy or not, because if you don't allow it, they're going somewhere else. So that to me just illustrates the dinosaur way of thinking that is, luckily, dying a very, very fast death, because these gatekeepers that still think they allow or do not allow people to do anything is insane.
It's an interesting case study because JP Morgan are the biggest bank in the world. And they also hold probably a lot of the oldest money in the world as their customers as well. So I think that there is a prudential expectation for a brand like JP Morgan to protect the wealth of their clients and to be conservative. So I understand why they would have a more conservative view on emerging asset classes. But Jamie Dimon really did peg his personal brand to being anti-crypto. And I think, I don't know if he'd be starting to regret that or not. I don't think he probably cares, to be honest, but it is reflective of what all of the big global institutions have done, which is a 180-degree turn on crypto over the last 3 years, or even 2 years, to be honest. BlackRock, even 2 years ago, were trying as much as they can to talk down crypto. And now they've got the biggest crypto ETF in the world, which is twice as large as their next biggest ETF. So they're all done that 100% flip because they realize the market has already decided that this is a legitimate asset class and that the infrastructure, the traditional financial frameworks need to catch up.
Look, I agree. I mean, I think, well, so I certainly agree that they're all doing a double take. That JP Morgan CEO doubled down on his dislike of crypto. He certainly didn't back away. He doubled down on it. But the wording that you used about their mindset was that they feel that they're the custodians and it's old money and they should get over yourselves. Yeah, there are legal reasons and regulatory reasons why you need, as an advice firm, certainly here in Australia, and you know far more about the state's regulatory system than I do, but probably there's some regulatory compliance reasons why they want to be careful. But again, the days of these people thinking that they are the moral custodians or the custodian of decision sets, it just tells me that they don't understand several things. One, they don't understand the way that information works today, and they don't understand the fact that old money, again, anywhere in the world, is intergenerational. And the way that the patriarch or the matriarch of the family wealth thinks about things today, there's another 2 generations that will inherit or already have sitting on the board of some of these families. And they have an entirely different outlook on not just on the sort of assets they want to invest in, but the outcomes that they want from investing as well. So to make a statement that we don't think it's a safe place to invest, I tell you, these family offices, maybe part of the generation still care what their moral or their view on risk about assets such as crypto digital assets are. But in 5 to 10 years' time, people will laugh as I laugh at comments like that. It is just ridiculous.
If you've got a wealth management industry that traditionally has demonstrated value by being experts and a gated access pathway to certain investments because they hold more knowledge, and they hold exclusive access to certain investment vehicles. And we're seeing that completely get broken down with AI having more knowledge than any human's going to have. And making it democratizing access to that knowledge. And as robo-advice inevitably comes in, there'll be countless ways that the average investor can access that advice in a way that suits them, I think, in the future. But also accessing to investments as everything migrates into the blockchain, which let's say that happens, which most people believe it will. What time frame is up for debate, doesn't really matter. But as that happens, then all of a sudden accessing all of these alternative investment classes is also democratized and opened up. And even from a regulatory point of view, whereas currently you've got different asset classes which are restricted you can only access certain investment classes if you're a sophisticated investor or a professional investor, i.e. you're rich, you've already got a couple of $1 million in disposable assets, or you've got $250,000 of income for the last 3 years. So all of those barriers are also getting broken down as you start operating in a global context and with a blockchain-enabled access pathways. That's presenting like a fundamental shift in the role of these wealth institutions and the relevance of them for consumers, isn't it? Or is it?
No, so short answer is yes, it is. But as with so many things about AI, it's not as simple as flat yes and let's move on, because it is a yes. Like as you've said, knowledge is it's in our pockets now. Our iPhones in our pockets add, who knows, 20, 30, 50 IQ points to us every single day. Yeah, anybody for the $20 a month, Chat GPT Pro subscription, you are technically, you have all of the knowledge. You have as much knowledge on at hand as anybody else does in the world. So without a doubt, the ability to access knowledge is democratized. It already is. It's not even a discussion anymore. It just is. And on this access to product stuff, I remember you and I ran into each other this week up in Sydney at the Stockbrokers and Investment Advisors Conference. We had a chuckle as people, a couple of the speakers on stage were talking about, with regards to equity settlement, how to get more real time and how to try and get away from this, post-trade settling, T+1 or T+2. How can you actually get a real-time settlement as soon as you buy something? And, hello, it's already possible, my friend. So that sort of thinking will take a little bit of time to die out. But so primarily some of these wholesale type assets that you're talking about, the fact that they are only able to be accessed by technically wholesale investors, there's probably two general camps, and there's more. But if I try and bucket everything into two camps as to why they make them available to wholesale, sometimes it's just a small offer to make things available to retail investors. There's just so many hoops you've got to jump through, offer documents and trustees, responsible entities, whatever the vehicle is that you want to put it in. And it's time consuming, it's expensive. So the way around that is, I'm just going to make it available to wholesale investors only. I can do a pretty quick investment, an IM information memorandum or some other offer doc, depending on what sort of vehicle you're putting it into. It's just easier. So where that's the reason why things have become wholesale only, yeah, for sure, that they're going to be accessible to anybody when people work out how much more effective it is to have those assets on the chain somewhere. But the other reason why assets are wholesale only is sometimes just the structure of these things. Whether they're just hard to structure, and I don't think they're impossible to get onto blockchain type set of rails infrastructure, but they will take longer. So I think for retail investors, yes, we will all see far more investment options that were previously wholesale only just available. But back to this regulatory thing, the Australian public and the Australian government really needs to get its head around how the regulations need to be quite different to actually facilitate true democratisation of some of these assets.
And look, we're both enthusiastic advocates of advised relationships and the importance of being able to have an accredited professional provide a balanced, unbiased, educated view to help people get through their wealth management. Well, I won't speak for you. I think that plays an important role, is my view, in Australia. And I think that if the advised industry doesn't adapt to these changes effectively, it does risk undermining its existence because it loses its relevance. And that's a real concern. We have to be really careful that we understand what that unique value of that advised personal relationship is and retain that and actually use it as a strength. Is that the way you see it? And what do you think that unique value of that personal advised relationship is or should be in the context of crypto, blockchain, AI?
So I think today advice is invaluable to Australians. Obviously, access to that is hard. I think the average advice fee is something like $3,500 to $5,000 if somebody needs investment advice, and that's a price that a lot of people aren't prepared to pay. It's there's a whole lot of regulation around the way it actually has to happen today, which doesn't help. But I think one of the issues, sort of focusing on advice, yes, it's important today. Will it still be important in the future? Any advisor's client base usually has a diverse demographic range. There's some older clients, some younger clients, and they all want different things. They need to be serviced different ways. So advisors need to make sure that the way they are thinking about servicing their clients from a tech perspective can deal with the current, perhaps older generation retiree clients, the boomers coming into retirement, and the Gen X, Y, Zs who just generally do want things a little bit differently. Relationships are probably all that's left in an AI-driven world. There's the ability to know what questions to ask of AI and orchestrate how things hang together. That is valuable, but as are relationships. So if we break advice down, a lot of it is knowledge about what strategies are best to reduce your bad debt, to maximise your retirement savings. They are mathematical equations. If this, then that, and AI does that. Will do that far better than people, but AI is currently unable to replace that really human connection, and it gets really close. Even now, it does get close, but I have a feeling that there's that human element is what people will crave. So grasping onto the fact that a human element is the most important thing, but making the rest of your business as efficient as it possibly can be. And I'll talk more about efficiency and competitiveness in a minute, but that's the key.
Right. Yeah, it's a great point. And probably defining what that human element actually is in that wealth management relationship is going to be key. I might ask AI what it is actually.
Yeah. No, look, but it's a really fair point, and I think like some of the way that our advisors are using tech today is again that they still know each of their clients. Their clients know what they look like, but they're using AI to go and summarise market movements overnight, to summarise statements of advice or records of advice, or whatever the document is that they're wanting to present, or whatever the economic summary is they want to present. They're having AI prepare that for them. They're vetting it, but it's going straight into an AI avatar of the advisor, and instead of the advisor having to call people up or have a monthly or a quarterly seminar as they used to in the olden days, an AI avatar can be created with, hey, yes, I've read the summary, away it goes, and all of a sudden, all of the advisor's clients have an avatar of this person they know, they've met, they trust, delivering them what can be and often is a very, very personalised message. And so it's finding that line where if that was an AI avatar of somebody you'd never met, well, there's no value. Sorry, there's not no value in that. I'll take that back. But but it's very different, that human connection of, I've met that guy, I have a relationship with them, and hey, I've got his face in front of me delivering me every morning or every week. That, I think, is the difference being that you actually know the person, you recognise that avatar.
And I guess that's no different to any professional services out there. I mean, if you think about doctors or lawyers, or they're all confronting the same challenge and also have the same opportunities ahead of them. That there's an expectation, or there's a value towards the human connection, an expectation and understanding that, well, you can provide a better service by leveraging these technologies, as long as there's an ability to escalate to that person at some point, to actually, if you want to pay for that peace of mind, and you can just have that little chat at the end there to say, look, really though, how do you feel about it? That does seem like that's the next evolution in most professional service industries.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I think that this is where our natural biases, and obviously everything I'm saying too is my natural bias, but this is where the biases come into it. And just on that exact point, there was I think it was maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now, the first AI-only law firm was licensed in the UK. And so that is a model, it's a first time. And so no people, but the whole point of that AI-only law firm in the UK is that you can only get cheap cookie cutter, sorry, I shouldn't say that because it's not cookie cutter, it's AI driven, but it's the basic stuff. But there is no escalation to human there. It is that it is serving a certain niche in the market that either previously would not have got legal advice at all or would have got super dodgy legal advice. So I guess I can see the same thing happening with advice where, as you said, I mean, if you're a full service advice business today, the sort of model you spoke about makes perfect sense. But again, if you're running an advice business today and you don't expect an AI-only advice firm to be around sometime in the next couple of years, you're just not understanding what's happening in the world. So,
yep.
It absolutely will change how things work.
Yeah. Okay. Fascinating times. Maybe if we bring it back a little bit to where we are today and the advisor world or relationship. You mentioned earlier around platforms, not really having too much of an economic incentive to sort of embrace some of these changes. If 30% of Australians already own crypto and half of them don't really know what they're doing with it and actually need some help, then having visibility of that within the platform. So if an advisor comes in and they can open up the client accounts and say, I can see your assets here. You've got this much in your home and this much in investment property, equities, Australian equities, US equities, and here's your crypto holdings. My belief is that that actually is of quite significant value, not just to help them provide better service because they've got a deeper understanding of the client, but also it helps them protect that client relationship because the client's not going off to third parties to establish different relationships with different asset classes. So it simplifies things. It gives them a proper centralized data feed of what's happening for that client's wealth. How much utility is in that, and do you think that that's something that might affect the mindset of advisors if they had that visibility?
The best analogy I can think of, or the easiest one, is the electric car versus the internal combustion engine car. They're totally different. And so imagine if we didn't have a true different electric car with something like only 36 moving parts as opposed to the 250 odd that come in the ICE vehicles. But if you tried to slowly morph the old internal combustion engine into an electric vehicle and tried to slowly morph your internal combustion engine factories into one that can produce electric vehicles, you'd have this Frankenstein and it'd be horrible. But you know what? That is the near term for the industry where we are trying to achieve the outcome which you've said, which is provide whole of wealth reporting. But we're trying to do that on top of existing infrastructure, which the wrap platforms have all been built for and optimized from a tech perspective and an economic perspective to shove things into a product structure and everything into custody. And that's how it happens. So to answer your question, yes, there is great utility in being able to do that. And the next couple of years, everybody will be bastardizing what they have to, cram it in to make it work. But at the same time, real change, because it's one thing just to report on all this stuff. So, and yes, that is critical. It's important. And everybody, intermediary and advisor, should see all the benefits in being able to do that. But there comes a point, and that point is actually already here, where people should be rethinking what actually is the best way to go about achieving the outcome that investors want, and therefore advisors will want. And that is how to, no matter what my investors want to invest in, whatever I think I want them to invest in, because they are not, they're not separate. Both need to be taken into account. What's the best way to actually facilitate me being able to act for my investors, to buy and sell things and report on things, and it's not through a product structure. So it's just the wrong starting point. But anyway, all of Mark's personal views aside, yes, it is critical that advisors are able to see and understand what a client's whole of wealth portfolio looks like, and just not say, the JP Morgan guy said, hey, I'm not going to allow you to buy these things and ignore it. That's just insane. Did I answer your question?
Yes, it's important.
It is.
And it's. I have to make a comment, but I can see there's an ominous metaphor going on behind you, Mark, as the storm clouds start
Oh,
drifting
is it?
across
I'll look out.
in the backdrop. Hopefully, that's not symbolic of the future of technology and wealth.
I think it is ominous for a lot of players, providers, market participants, but because technology stacks, business models, they're just not equipped to deal with what's coming. But change will come. There'll be winners and losers, but the ultimate winner will be the investors.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we spent some time together at the SIAA conference earlier this week, and we spoke a fair bit about this. And I think even for me, in what I'm trying to do with Synergist, I had to confront some realities that I didn't want to. I was hoping it would be different, but that's really that most advisors are just not ready to really talk to their clients about crypto or interested in it at the moment. So I've had to rethink that pathway and say, look, I am focused on education, unbiased, professional, fact-based education to help advisors understand the asset class and investors as well. And there's some investment strategy building type capabilities as part of that. But really, I think that coming from this conference, it made me realize that, actually just providing visibility through their existing tools and platforms is actually a better first step because it enables them to see what their clients are doing. It normalizes crypto as a viable asset class that already exists. And it then encourages them to then say, I need to learn about this. And so they can lean into that education more proactively. That in turn, when regulators provide more clarity, can set them up to actually start providing product advice, which they can't do today, but at least it prepares them for that. So hopefully, although it might not have been my preferred pathway, I'm hoping that this pivot will help advisors embrace this asset class more effectively.
Yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right because a lot of the reasons why they can't give advice are the regulatory reasons. If you assume that a reasonable person looks at the take up of digital assets in Australia and says, well, I want to participate somehow. I'm not allowed to give advice. How can I participate? It is by saying, I recognise that you're investing there. You know what? I can report on that for you. I can provide educational materials, referrals to SEC providers, whatever it is. I think that's just such a sensible approach for advisors to take because, as you say, it's embracing the reality that people are investing in these asset classes. It doesn't impact on their compliance at all. And the data piece you mentioned it's such an important piece because one of the things that I'm a realist about AI, as you know. I mean, I absolutely love it. I use it personally, professionally, and as a hobby as well. But because I understand its shortcomings. I think the shortcomings will get less and less pretty quickly. But fundamentally, just that data piece that you're talking about, access to data is certainly a whole lot easier. But these are still proprietary sets of data. There's still privacy issues, PII, personally identifiable information that's getting passed around, and there's actually a lot of issues getting the data and then cleansing the data, mapping it, and being able to say to investors that whether you're buying international equities, Aussie equities, bonds, or crypto, as a data provider, I can actually clean all that data and I can put it into a common format so that a buy's a buy and a sell's a sell, and that's not an insubstantial task. And I think that is something that AI is not going to help a lot with in the short to medium term. So I think it's a really valuable pivot that you've made.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. Great. All right, so maybe we can finish on a little bit of crystal ball gazing around the connection with AI and crypto, because I think that crypto, in my mind, is kind of like the native currency for AI. It's a digital currency. It's transparent. It can be rules based around so you can set parameters around which enable AI agents to operate within rails that whoever the ultimate holder of the assets allow. How do you do you see that already starting to emerge from your side, and where do you see it going in the short term?
Yeah, look, I guess as we were saying when we were speaking about this a bit at the conference during the week, Nobody really knows. It's best guess, but so that's the caveat on everything. And the second thing I can say with certainty is the first thing being I don't know. The second thing I can say that with certainty, and the second thing I can say with certainty too is that the financial services industry, certainly in Australia, is a laggard. So no, I do not see that happening. Absolutely not. Sorry, I don't see that currently happening. I don't.
In Australia?
In Australia, as I said, I can't comment with any authority outside of Australia, but no, I do not see that currently happening here. But a couple of things. Without doubt, it is the only, in a world where already we are redesigning websites to be browsed and consumed by agents and bots. That's a totally different proposition, and that's today, and that's just redesigning websites. So you can imagine a world in a very near future where AI agents are doing far more than just browsing data, but they're actually completing tasks, and they already are doing that, but I mean on a much larger scale. And where they are doing that and they're needing to transact, there is only one set of rails that allows that to happen in real time with certainty. And, that was just a slight segue, but it's on topic. Still back to that JP Morgan CEO. He was doubling down on his dislike of digital assets, talking about money laundering. But as you and I know, and I'm sure your listeners know far better than me anyway, crypto is far more traceable than money once it hits the banking system. That's where the money disappears. So it's just, again, from a money laundering and the ability to identify transactions in a chain and understand who did what, it's a far better outcome, it's a far faster outcome. So there's that. So yes, it is inevitable. And in a world where fiat currencies do lose some of their value, because instead of just having robots and AI as cheap labour, you then have robots building robots, and then you have robots building the factories that are building the robots, and labour becomes super, super cheap, then fiat currency does start to lose some of its value. So as a store of wealth in the not too distant future, crypto is it's not just a standout. It's one of the very few options I think that people have to retain value. So for all of those reasons, I think, but at the end of the day, my view on everything is economics always wins, and because it'll be quicker and easier to make transactions by bots and AI agents using the blockchain, it will win, and that is not far away.
Yep. So a couple of key things on that. I think one is, if to use the argument about crypto, I get that a lot, that crypto's used for money laundering and terrorist funding and everything. Well, if you're going to ban it on that basis, in Jamie Dimon had better start banning US dollars, because that's the worst offender for funding all of those things. So we'll put that to the side. I guess to finish on a question, which is, given if we tie these comments back to where we started around the pace of change for AI and how exponential it is, can Australia afford to take a laggard strategy, which traditionally we have in financial services? We follow other jurisdictions. That is our strategy. It's pretty open. Can we afford to do that when the pace of change is as high as it is today?
Undoubtedly no. And the only reason we've got away with it in the past is because of these regulatory boundaries and because of these access to market boundaries. It's still not super easy to go and quickly open up an international equities trading account. It's getting easier, of course. But as those boundaries fall away, and as these specific LLMs get trained specifically on financial data and on specifically financial advice data as well, you're going to end up with, I still think you're going to have a couple of foundation models, not many more than perhaps we have today, but those foundation models are going to be taken by firms anywhere in the world and fine-tuned on specific data. Maybe it's crypto investing, maybe it's financial advice strategies, but it could be absolutely anything. But once that starts to happen, and again, it's already happening, I certainly don't care what country that's happening in and what laws might be around. It's telling me what answers it might give us when we say, hey, given these parameters, what do you think the best strategy might be for us from an investing perspective, whatever the asset class is. So I think these geographic boundaries are absolutely falling away, and certainly crypto is at the forefront of that. But all of the other asset classes are really, really close behind, and the regulatory ones are falling away too. So in other words, they're the only things that have let industry in Australia get away with being a laggard historically, and those boundaries are gone. So if the industry here chooses to be a laggard, well, it simply won't matter. I think the day is approaching where the domicile of where your advice is coming from is rapidly diminishing. But I think that the opportunity is one for businesses, advisors, investors to embrace this and to work out and develop service models to take advantage of this, as you're doing and as we and I am doing. I think the opportunities are incredible. But people who come from the perspective of, well, we've got this existing industry and this existing business model, how do we protect that? Yeah, wrong mindset. That's a ticket to disaster. But if you say, this is a brand new opportunity, how can I rethink what I do to best service investors? Those people that are thinking about that and come up with a solution, the future is incredible.
Fantastic. And look, Mark, I can honestly say that I've learnt more from you than anywhere else about AI and this innovation and wave of change that's coming through.
Oh,
so
thank
you for sharing so much of your insights with me. For our listeners who might want to also learn a bit more about this and stay across what's happening in this space, and how can they follow you? What's the best way to connect and follow you?
Probably LinkedIn. Yeah, probably LinkedIn, Mark Papendieck. In fact, perhaps you could share my handle because it's a horrific surname to try and spell on LinkedIn.
I'll put it on the screen.
Yeah, I'm mindful that some of my views, I am on X, but I try not to post because I do need to travel to America from time to time, and I am worried that that may pose a problem if I continue posting on X. So yeah, please follow me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, legitimate concerns. Take a burner phone.
100%.
Yeah, that's DFAT advice now when going to America, I believe. But okay, well, great. Thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed our chat. Learned a lot as always, and I look forward to the next time we catch up.
Thanks for having me. Love chatting too. Thanks, mate. See you now.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. All views of Andrew McPhee and his guests are their opinions only and do not reflect the opinions of Synergist. You should not treat any opinions expressed as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a particular strategy.